So unfortunately, we can't get this video out any faster than our normal production process because Steve Green really deserves the copyright on this remark, and I'm afraid somebody else is going to do it beforehand. But go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead. There's a meta timestamp on it for those of us who want to take it to court.
That's true. The Harry formerly known as Prince. There, I've said it.
Why am I laughing harder about that now that the camera's rolling than I...
Because I use that stupid
story.
deadpan, that's why.
It's an interesting story.
You know, I think being run out of the monarchy by the media that killed your mother that's a story in itself right there. I mean, I don't blame the guy, you know, just say, that's enough of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then they get off. Well, one of I read one story about this yesterday, and basically the point of the story was if Harry and what's her name, Meghan, if Harry and Meghan think that they're going to get away from the paparazzi by stepping away from the royal family, they're sadly mistaken. And in fact, if anything, what is more appealing than a guy who walked away from it all and now is trying to start an independent life away from?
Except I don't think it's him. I think this is pure Meghan. I think she decided, she might have decided this going in, is that it would be much more fun and profitable to be a PR tool for herself than to be a PR tool for the royal family in Great Britain.
That's exactly what I think.
What kind of woman-hating nonsense is that?
Accurate woman-hating nonsense.
I don't think it's woman-hating at all.
No, I agree. That's it completely. I think she probably told him in the quiet hours of the morning, the other side of the American Revolution saga.
Oh man, she's trying to turn him.
And Harry said, "This independence thing. There's something to this."
Yeah.
If I had
no, I think that's entirely Meghan and her her desire for a career. Apparently they were at like some kind of Disney event and she was like openly coming up to like producers and saying, "Hey, I was wondering if you'd like to hire me for voiceover work." And Beyonce's in the background or somebody's cringing, just like cringing.
Well, I would argue with you, except that I don't know anything. And so...
and my little pet theory there is the sum total of my involvement or caring with the whole mess. I'm an American. We don't do this kind of thing. I know there's a big public fascination in this country for it, but
it's really like it's not like somebody's walking away from the royal family or the monarchy. It's like you're walking away from the Kardashians. It's just like I've had enough of this kind of life, and I'm going to step away and go live in some other country just to get away from the publicity of being one of the Kardashians. Because it's not like there's anything other than a figurehead kind of situation there. So I predict within a generation the whole thing won't even exist. It'll be just, something that people like, they look at movies and they go, "Oh, look at that. Wasn't it quaint? We used to have a queen."
It seems like you might be right, but they've been saying that for 200 years now.
Yeah, I think it's going to stick around.
One of the, it's like, I know this is kind of cruel, but I think it's pretty widely known, and it's like a well-kept open secret that Harry's father was not Prince Charles.
Yeah.
That Harry's father was her, what was he, bodyguard or whatever his name was.
Man, you can't do that. You can't do that.
It's true.
It's true. It's true. Oh, now it's pretty widely accepted, and now it's true.
No, it's true.
Now we're speaking truth.
Yeah. Ask Webb Hubble sometime.
But my point is, you look at Harry and Will standing next to each other, and it's pretty clear which one of those two is the result of cousins marrying each other for long periods of time. They just don't look anything like each other, and Harry, kind of a good-looking guy, much like his father.
Well, I just want to thank you all for tuning in to TMZ. I'm Scott Ott. This is Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, and we've decided that celebrity gossip is the way to go now because what we were doing before wasn't catching on. So, no, this is actually kind of a meeting that we have before we do the actual shows, and then at some point along the line, we decided that if we recorded the meeting, it would be as if we were making more content.
As though, yeah.
As though. And this happened long before we were at this particular enterprise at BillWhittle.com. This happened when we were back at the old establishment. So
it was your idea, as I recall.
Sadly, Sadly, it was my idea.
We know who to thank and or blame.
That's why I have been damned to moderating this event since then. I think I remember that conversation going something like, I don't want to do it. Neither do I.
You're the flying moderator. Lost.
Give it to Mikey. He'll host anything.
Lost, wandering the world throughout history, moderating things.
That's right.
The wandering moderator.
And that doesn't mean I'm moderate, but I can be moderating. No. I've been seen moderating in public. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we do here is basically this is kind of a pitch show where we talk about what the topics we'd like to discuss this week. We try to make sure that we're not assigning the same hosting topic to two different hosts, but really the way it's worked out is we just decide to split the topic into a finer gradation. Yep. And so, like if Steve and I both come to this meeting with the same idea, he'll say, well, why don't you take the angle about whether men should wear long hair wigs, and then the other, I'll take the angle about whether they should braid their hair and have it hanging out of a football helmet. And so
you take the vowels and I'll take the consonants.
That's right. But in this case, Bill Whittle gets first crack because he's actually got 2 episodes to host this week. So, Bill, what topics of conversation would you like us to engage in hitherto?
Well, I think the Bill show will be there's video footage from Project Veritas of yet another Bernie supporter talking about how he's looking forward to putting Republicans in re-education camps.
I saw this. This is a different video than the one they released last week.
New person.
So I want to talk about that because I don't remember that Bernie publicly disavowed the first guy at all. I just kind of hoped it would just disappear and be smothered by the news. So there's something rotten in the state of Denmark,
or Des Moines.
I think what's even more interesting is I actually did an afterburner about this these many years ago, and what James O'Keefe seems to be doing is something that I watched him learn directly from Andrew Breitbart. I call it the Breitbart reveal.
Yep. And
basically the Breitbart reveal works like this. You come up with one video and people ignore it. They say, well, it's just some lunatic. Then you come up with the second one and then that generates some kind of response. Well, 2 doesn't make anything. You come up with the third one. Then they're forced to say these people do not represent us. And you come up with a 5th one and a 6th one and a 7th one. Now, I don't know if he's got that in the bank, but this business of releasing them serially is unbelievably powerful because not only does it constantly renew and reinforce the point you're trying to make, but it gives the target of this plenty of opportunities to deny it and to wiggle and to accuse him of this and that. This is a ridiculous trap. One is one guy. It does not make a campaign. Well, what about 2 guys? No. What about 5 guys? What about 25 guys? So yeah. Look, I hope he keeps on coming. And again, I'm back to where we were with this last time. People genuinely have, some people on the left have absolutely no idea why people like us have guns. They don't understand it. But I have never, ever, in all of the time that I've been doing Tea Party events live and all of this, I have never, ever heard anybody talking about putting liberals into camps or anything like that. Never.
Bill, have you noticed the media's attempt to deal with the Breitbart reveal? After the first one, it's just one guy. After the second one, it's just a coincidence. After the third guy, okay, maybe you have something. By the time the 5th guy comes out, the media's response is, oh, that's old news. Everybody knows
that's right.
that.
That's old news.
We've seen that many times before.
Sad.
I want to see Bernie making the, sort of disavowing these people and saying, it's like, I just want to clarify and disavow what they said. My education policy is not gulags. We're not going to call them gulags.
You're not going to call them gulags. Yeah.
We're going to call them Bernievilles. And also in this is the interesting idea of why Bernie didn't come out and condemn the guy the first time. And I think it's because Bernie knows if he does condemn this kind of talk, he'll lose an awful lot of enthusiasm from his people.
From his gulag worshipping fans.
And this made me think, if it was brought to my attention that there was like an active big fan of mine or something who was a racist, I would immediately, or racist, whatever else, it doesn't matter. A fascist kind of guy wants to put people in camps. I would immediately disown the guy. And if I was threatened with, well, Bill, a lot of your followers feel that way, then my response would be, well, then I've been doing something horribly wrong. I disown the entire idea and anybody who wants to go with it. And if that means my support is cut down by 95%, then it's a small price to pay for having attracted so many awful people for reasons that are beyond my understanding, that kind of thing. But that requires some courage, and we'll never see that from Bernie or from many other people, I don't think.
Speaking of stories that quickly fade away, and stop me if you're going to do anything about this. Let me just say, are you going to do anything about the rally in Virginia? Anybody?
No, I thought Bill would take that one. So,
are you doing that, Bill?
I demurred.
I'm not.
Okay. So let me just say, because this story will quickly, fall through the memory hole, that there was great buildup in the press about the danger posed by a bunch of people who are against Governor Ralph Northam and the Democrats in Virginia who have just taken over the legislature, passing these gun control regulations. And there was going to be this big rally of gun rights advocates. And of course, it was going to be a replay of, what was it? Was it Charlotte or Charlottesville? I can never remember. Charlottesville. And, with the white nationalists and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, a bunch of people got together on a pretty chilly day and stood outside, and many of them with AR-15s slung over their backs, and held a peaceful rally and lodged their political protest against what the governor was doing. And there was no violence, and nobody did anything bad, and then it was over.
Yeah,
because they're conservatives.
Yeah, well, my favorite comment was I think Hales Razor on Twitter last night, who said, "What do you get when you fill a state capitol with hundreds of thousands of gun-wielding conservatives?"
Cleaner streets?
Yeah, litter pickup and cleaner streets. Yeah,
that's right. Anyway, so just we tip of the hat to the folks who gathered there, and that's been our experience. I mean, that doesn't surprise any of us here. No. The kinds of people who insinuate themselves into otherwise peaceful demonstrations in order to cause trouble tend not to be the kinds of people that we associate with, or certainly not the kinds of people we associate with.
Yeah, there was one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, there was one of those instigators caught on tape and saying, hey, well, now that we're all here, let's go beat up some, I don't know, whatever, some incitement to violence. And all the genuine conservatives, law-abiding gun owners, libertarians, whatever around him were like, dude, no.
Nice. Okay, so that's number one is the O'Keefe, second drip of the O'Keefe faucet for the re-education camps of the Bernie supporter. What is your other episode, Bill?
This one's a little... it may be a little different than you may think in the beginning. I just kind of go in a slightly different direction on this. When Greta Thunberg was asked what has happened since she first shook the world to its foundations with her UN speech, she's quite disturbed to announce that nothing really has happened. Yeah. And the reason we shouldn't listen to Greta Thunberg is because Greta Thunberg is not yet old enough to understand that the world does not suddenly reverse course because one person said that it should, or because an entire generation said that it should. Strangely enough, when I was probably a sophomore at the University of Florida, there was talk about starting a comedy newspaper, I think called The Ape or something. And for a full week, I was convinced that this newspaper was going to change the world, that we would be able to put stuff in there. No, I'm serious as I can be, as I can be. And it's like, we're going to put in stuff that's going to be so funny and so radical and so cool. And as it turned out, the newspaper didn't last a week. And people would say, yeah, that's terrible. Whether it's, I don't know if it's terrible or not, but this is why young people should be listened to respectfully, and when they're finished, saying, well, bless your heart. That's the response. Because when you're 16 or whatever age she is, although she looks like she's going on 40 from the look in her eye, you have this expectation that you are the first person, or your generation is the first generation ever to realize this great injustice, or ever to realize this, or ever to, we're going to be the first ones who are going to actually do something about this. And every generation feels that way. And then as they get older, they realize that societies don't change that way. They change very, very slowly. It's like one single tugboat at the bow of the USS Nimitz, It's pushing as hard as it can. The Nimitz is steaming towards the west, and over a long period of time, this thing may slowly turn the bow a little bit to the north, but it's not going to stop the ship and make it do a right angle turn. And this is what change looks like in the real world.
You're kind of lampooning the great man theory of history here, Bill, and you just wonder, how do you get people up in the morning to fight passionately for a cause that is worth dying for, or at least fighting for, and tell them, oh, by the way, your contribution to this effort, no matter how far your voice is heard from here, is going to be an infinitesimally small drip in a gradual process that eventually may result in change, but you won't see it in your lifetime. Like, how do you
I hope you bring that up, because that's a very, very interesting response to this, because I do believe in the great man theory. And I think, just off the top of my head, hearing you say that, I said, Scott's got an excellent point. Then I realized, no, he doesn't.
No, what you realized was it's Scott that's saying it. So then you go, oh, never mind.
What I came to, the first thing that I went to was Winston Churchill, who clearly changed the course of Britain's attitude towards the war. And I thought, well, Scott's got a good point. There's a guy who literally made the ship of state do a right angle turn. But then I realized, the ship of state under Chamberlain, the English people didn't have to make that kind of a radical turn. That ship had kind of wandered off of its natural course. The people wanted to go in the direction Churchill did, or at least a significant number of them did. So it's not like he had to move that masses of people's opinions.
So he's getting out in front of the existing parade.
He just had to come out and say, hey, look, it's now the time to play around is over. Now we have to do this. But it's an interesting point. In any event, if she's this upset after what has been 6 months, maybe something, not even, she's going to have a very tormented youth and likely a tormented adult life. And I think the thing, as I said before, the thing that's going to probably cause Greta the most stress in the course of what I hope will be a long life for her will be seeing none of these horrific effects that she's talking about come true. That's going to be heartbreaking.
Take a chill pill, dear.
Yeah, and I've kind of had mixed emotions about this, because on the one hand, even though I disagree with where she's placed the focus of her passion, I don't like to rain on anybody's parade and who's got a serious cause for which they are willing to give their last full measure of devotion, to paraphrase President Lincoln. But so I never want to say to somebody,
but what's she giving up? She's on TV. She gets to fly around the world. All this.
No. She doesn't fly. She sails in a boat that's driven by two other guys who then fly back to the country that they came from in a plane. Anyway, there's a great scene in Will Smith's movie The Pursuit of Happiness, where he's telling his son that basically you can't make a difference. You just don't even try. And I've only seen the movie once or twice, so I can't paraphrase it, or quote it. But anyway, he's kind of, because he's so disappointed in the way his own life is going, he unloads on his son about how you're not going to be a professional basketball player. You're not going to do all these things that you dream of. And then at some point he stops himself and says, don't ever let anybody say that to you. And it's one of the greatest moments in any movie I've ever seen, where he's like, no, if your dad says that, he's wrong.
I'm not a cynic about this. If I didn't believe that we could make a difference, wouldn't be doing this.
Exactly.
We'd be buying beans and bacon. But I also have, over the course of, as I've said a few times, took a while for life to beat the stupid out of me. And now I understand that these kind of things, that's how the world works. And she's about to learn it. She was the center of the world spotlight for a couple weeks there, stood up in front of the United Nations and undoubtedly thought that finally somebody has the moral courage to speak the truth to these people. Well, it turns out that these people have heard this story hundreds of times before.
Well, she just said it again today, Bill. She appeared at Davos, where President Trump was speaking to all the world's gathered billionaires and leaders, and so she again got up and said the house is on fire. The problem is, how many times can you get up and say the house is on fire before people start going, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm still on the couch and I'm okay."
There is an interesting folktale about this involving a boy and a wolf. And this is another danger of people like this, and it's another danger of scientists trying to gin this up and amp it up for whatever reasons. Maybe give them the best possible motivations, that they're trying to make the case more alarming than it is because it's serious and it needs some work. So we have to scare people into complying with it. Even we're going to make it sound worse than it is because it's going to be bad. And if we tell them it's going to be bad slowly, they won't do anything. That's probably the best motivation I can put on them. But my point is, if you continue to do this and you continue to raise the note, your high note, then what happens when you have an actual emergency, like an actual genuine pressing emergency?
Did you guys see the story, and I'm probably mischaracterizing it here, but the headline was basically that the ocean is warming at the pace of 5 hydrogen bombs a day. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. But did you see Charlie Martin actually do the math on that?
No, I don't know who Charlie Martin is or what math is.
Well, as it turns out, whatever the math is, it sounds scary. Oh my God, it's like we're setting off 5 hydrogen bombs every day. Except the actual math is a fraction of a degree centigrade over the course of a century.
That's right. So in other words, there's probably 200 million H-bombs going off in the ocean every day in terms of the total available energy. And 5 of those, may or may not be caused by this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to need more hydrogen bombs.
Clearly.
Okay, so we got Bill with the O'Keefe episode, and then how would you characterize? What's your log line for the Thunberg episode?
Sit down and shut up, kid. You might learn something.
Okay. I'll put that in there in words that are totally different than that. Okay. All right. By the way, you said beans and bacon earlier. And this morning, as Stephanie was headed out to work, she said, "Hey, I don't have time to finish my breakfast. Do you want to eat this piece of bacon?" And my thought was,
it's a trick question.
Did you just state that in the form of a question?
Who doesn't finish their bacon? I've met Stephanie. She's lovely. She's a delightful human being. But who doesn't finish their bacon?
Communists.
But who thinks that you have to ask your husband whether he's willing to eat a piece of bacon?
How long you been married?
26 and a half years.
I would have turned to her and said, "Honey, we've been married for almost 3 decades, and you don't know me.
Don't you know me?
Right.
Don't you even know me?
You don't know me at all."
I did not have to explain. She knew this already. To my wife, the great bacon paradox. There's never any leftover bacon because if you leave bacon, it gets eaten.
Seems reasonable.
You know what I did? Just a totally off-the-wall personal note. In addition, writing 2 columns yesterday, one of which was like 1,700 words on World War I and stuff. I was also running the smoker. I turned about 5 pounds of London broil into about 2 pounds of beef jerky. So I'm running the smoker all day, and my kids had the day off, of course, for MLK. And I pull that first piece of jerky out, and it turns out this was a fairly spicy load. I give it to my 9-year-old, and he just lights up, and not because it was too spicy. I'm just like, that's my boy.
He likes it.
Can I have a few ounces?
Pardon?
Can I get a few ounces?
Hey, come on over. I will run the smoker just for you.
I was hoping you would deliver it.
That's right,
Steve.
All right. I'll tell you what. I'll bring some on the Bill Whittle cruise.
There's an idea, although you probably are not allowed to carry that. But did you see that we had a question from one of our members about carrying weapons on board the cruise?
I did see that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I sent it to our travel agent who coordinates all this and basically said you're not allowed to carry weapons onto the ship. However, there's an arrangement with the hotel that a lot of people are staying in the night before, where they will put your handgun, for example, under lock and key, and only the management has the key to it, and that he has years of experience with them, that they are a trustworthy repository for.
Yeah, that's where I leave mine.
That's right.
Basically, is what he said.
I meant to call them to find out exactly what the conditions or status are on my emotional support chainsaw.
That's right. It's my emotional support clock. I can't be without that. So anyway, so that's good news, somewhat. We are basically, you're going to have to rely on your wits and the 5 fingers of death if you should have to defend yourself on board the ship.
Legend of Drunken Master in my case.
So did we get to you yet, Steve? Did you do anything?
No, I
haven't. Tell your jerky story?
Do you want to go last? I don't think I'm taking your topic this week.
No, I do. I want to go last.
You do want to go last.
Thank you.
You don't?
I do.
Okay, I will go second to last. Yeah, I've got some bad news. Bill, this is very tangentially related to your regular segment this week. You know, these Bernie bros, these field organizers, they're so enthusiastic for Bernie that they want to open up gulags, right? I have some very bad news for our Bernie bros. Bernie doesn't want to win. He does not have the fire in the belly to win this contest.
What makes you say
You think that's different than 2016?
Pardon?
Do you feel like that's in opposition to 2016?
No,
or you think he felt that way too?
Don't. I wrote a column about this morning for PJ Media, and I was relating a couple of recent incidents that make me believe this. And then one of my readers commented, going back to 2016, same kind of thing. I wrote this column that Bernie's been pulling his punches, especially against Joe Biden, who's the front runner, and he's the guy, you want to go for the jugular. And instead, he's been pulling his punches. And my reader reminded me he did the same thing in 2016 at that debate when they brought up Hillary's emails. And he said,
yeah, well, nobody cares about that.
Nobody cares about a damn emails.
That's right. So this is a guy who, when he's in second place and has it in his sights to take the front runner down, pulls his punches. This guy, he likes to make the fiery speech. He likes the attention. I think he loves the money and the, dacha out in the woods and all that. He doesn't want to win.
So you're saying because he didn't press the case of Elizabeth Warren as the candidate of the elitists that he's pulled his punch there?
That's a great point, Steve. I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
He did it again with Liz Warren in the debate about, did he or did he not say a woman couldn't win the election, and I'll get into that in the real segment. He did it again just on Sunday. I don't know if you saw this, but one of his supporters, not a member of the campaign, but a left-wing writer named Zephyr Teachout, wrote a column for The Guardian detailing just how corrupt Joe Biden and his family are. And Biden was asked about this on CBS News. It's Zephyr Teachout. She's not exactly a household name. It's The Guardian, not exactly widely read in America. And instead of just letting this thing kind of slide, Sanders publicly apologized to Joe Biden that one of his supporters would even mention this thing. It was the
think he should have gone for the jugular on Biden?
Absolutely. He pulled his punches on Clinton. Steve, he pulled it on Warren twice, on Biden now.
I'd never thought about that, but I think you're absolutely right. And I think probably a lot of the reason is because he might win, and being president is hard.
It is.
There's like actual work involved.
Here it is. It is absolutely not my view that Joe is corrupt in any way, and I'm sorry that op-ed appeared. And that sounds like he just wants to be called Mr. Secretary.
Yeah.
That's right. Secretary of the Treasury, presumably.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's going to be fun. I've got, I'll pull some, a couple of quotes, probably the one you just pulled, Scott. But I mean, who was it that did that New York Post article just a few days ago? I guess it was an op-ed detailing how 5 members of Joe Biden's family got really rich while he was vice president. It was just really damning stuff.
Peter Schweitzer has a new book out that's about the corruption of the Biden family, including some activity in Costa Rica and Jamaica by his brother Frank, who got like favorable loans from the government to open a resort in Costa Rica, and then lost millions of it, and then changed his focus over to Jamaica, where he also lost money doing something else.
Man.
Clearly parlaying his relationship with the vice president the way Hunter Biden seems to have.
I just had a thought that was kind of weird. You ever have those play those games or have those discussions where there's like a moral quandary kind of issue, like a streetcar is rolling down the tracks and you're standing next to the switch, and if you don't switch it, it'll kill 3 people, but if you do switch it, it'll only kill 1. Do you want to be, these kind of moral conundrums? I was thinking that I thought, which would be more catastrophic to the nation? Bernie as Treasury Secretary, Bernie as Secretary of State, or Bernie as Secretary of Defense?
Oh, dear God.
Discuss.
Wait, before we get into a discussion on that, I have to hurl.
Something tells me that he is not capable of running any of those organizations. So there could be an argument.
Nobody's capable of ruining them.
Well, I don't know, because it's possible that you could make the argument that the entrenched bureaucracy would be able to outlast him as well, unless they've just been waiting for a guy like Bernie to show up.
Well, judging by the last 3 years, maybe they have been.
Well, let's hope we never have to find out the answer to Bill's moral quandary.
You have to remember that secretary line when we do the segment.
What was the secretary line? Oh, I've already forgotten.
Classic. Well, that's like the ultimate Scott thing. Say a funny thing, get reminded of it 2 minutes later, and go, "Did I say that?"
No, I know one joke, and it's the only joke that I've ever been able to remember. Even jokes that I've made up, I can't remember moments later. But there was this one. I must have heard it right before I walked into the room. I was going to seminary, and I was walking into my preaching class, and somebody must have told me this joke. And I got in there, and the professor was kind of fiddling around before the class started. And I said, do you want to hear a joke, Doctor, whatever his name was? And he said, sure. And I said, what's the difference? And this was a Baptist seminary, by the way. I said, what's the difference between Baptists and Catholics? And he goes, I don't know. What's the difference between Baptists and Catholics? And I say, Catholics will wave to each other in the liquor store. So apparently, after that, I later found out a couple of years later that every semester that professor retold that joke with each new class that came up. But anyway, that's the only joke I can remember. Other than this joke, there's a new documentary out about Hillary Clinton. And so it's like 4 hours long or something unbelievable. And apparently she had made it known that she had something like 2,000 hours of archival footage and shopped around for somebody to do this documentary. And it's apparently a relatively laudatory documentary. But one of the interesting things, and the thing that's getting the most attention right now because of the timeliness of it in the pre-publicity is, let me get the quote here. This is she's being interviewed after doing this documentary for publicity here. And in the documentary, the reporter says, "You're brutally honest on Bernie Sanders." And this is quoting Hillary Clinton. "He was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. He was a career politician. It's all just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it." End quote. And the reporter says, "That assessment still hold?" And Hillary Clinton says, "Yes, it does."
What did Hillary get done in the Senate?
Well, see, yeah.
I was just going to say, who was being described? Was it Hillary or Bernie?
That's exactly what I was thinking when I read it. I thought, well, if you took out the male pronoun, if you said she instead of he, I think that people could say, oh, well, nobody likes her. She didn't get anything done. She had one friend. So there are other things that happen in the course of this documentary.
And he just killed himself.
But what's that?
And he just killed himself.
Who just killed himself?
Her one friend.
The one friend, yeah. I was like, did Bernie say it? What? But anyway, I just think that, and there's one other quote in here, Bill, that you'll love, where they ask about President Trump and the way he frequently comments on her. And here it is. The reporter says, "Trump has helped to keep you in the news." And Hillary says, There are some people who just can't give me up. I live rent-free in his head.
Again, who's she talking about?
It's all projection. That's all you need to understand. All you need to understand.
But, lacking any other major news other than the nonstop coverage, which, by the way, last week we talked about how they were showing a live shot of the debate stage for the Democratic debate that was about to happen. Well, today on CNN, they have a continual live shot of the hallway in the Senate building, like for 2 hours before the senators arrived. And at one point, you see this young, what must be a female intern. She's standing there and she's on her phone and she's, texting or something. And this security guard kind of comes over and asks her to move along, but she's right in the camera shot. She's like dead center in the camera shot. And I guess somehow CNN got permission to set up a tripod at an intersection. And, and here comes Ted Cruz and he walks past so fast, you're not even sure it's Ted Cruz. But this is what is passing for engaging news and entertainment now, is live shots of buildings and hallways where nothing is happening.
Leftists are incredibly easily amused or entertained is the only conclusion I can draw from that.
I guess that it builds a sense of anticipation, like the old line about, if there's a revolver on the mantle in Act 1, it better have been fired by the end of Act 3. Unfortunately, in this case, the revolver is still going to be on the mantle, cold, with no aroma of gunpowder in the room.
It's television, so you need a picture, and there's no picture. It's like watching the Saturn V on the stack for 8 hours before Apollo 11 launches. What else are you going to look at? You got to look at something. So, yeah, it's just they'd be clowning themselves.
But at least with the Apollo ship, you've got a gigantic tube of flammable material. So there's that sense of potential, like watching the Indy 500, something could happen there. But this, literally nothing could happen. And the rule that basically says that the senators not only can't talk, can't whisper to each other, can't use their smart devices, can't read anything other than material directly related to the trial while they sit there for 12 hours straight. All of that is really death to the news media. Because they've actually got to be serious. They've got to be like jurors in a trial, and they've got to sit there and listen to the evidence, and they can't be horsing around. And therefore, the media, what are they going to do all that time?
There's no break-in angle. There's no sex angle. There's no interest.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that it's an impeachment over nothing.
Stuff is going to happen by stuff not happening, and we'll be there every step of the way for you on Right Angle. We're going to record this week's episodes. We just want to say another thank you to the members at BillWhittle.com who have made this possible. I get to see, by the way, guys, emails from I meant to read this to you last week. I don't have it in front of me now, but one of our members wrote to me and said that he had to stop his membership payments because he had just gotten a cancer diagnosis, and that the prognosis was something like 6 months to 2 years. And but he said very many encouraging things to us about how valuable this was to him, but he's trying to shepherd all his resources to make sure that he leaves his wife in as good of a position as possible. And I wrote back to him and I said, at your request, I've discontinued your recurring payments for your membership, and I have issued a 25-month complimentary subscription. And we want you to stay connected, and we want you to stay engaged and stay with us.
Make it a lifetime subscription, would you please, for his wife? It was
a gesture, and we can do that. But it was a gesture to basically say, I don't care if they say 2 years, nobody knows. And we'll, instead of 24 months, we're going to go for 25 months, and we'll take it one step beyond what anybody thinks.
Good. That's better.
So
you're right.
In any case, we know that as we're doing this and, having fun in some cases and engaged in important discussions, we know that there are things going on in your life that rise much higher in importance than the kind of stuff that we're talking about. And he wasn't the only guy who's ever written to me and said that they had a health issue. This morning I got a note from a lady who said she had a health issue and she hopes to be back, but she's struggling. We just want you to know that we personally read every one of your notes and try to respond in as compassionate a way as we possibly can, because we know that you're our friends, you're our supporters, you're the ones who make this possible. And frankly, you're fellow great Americans, you're fellow human beings deserving of our respect. And we are grateful that even in times, and we've received many notes like this too, guys, where there were people who said, even when times were tough, I kept my membership at billwhittle.com going because I think what you guys are doing is important and crucial to this country. So we're grateful for that too. And there's so much more that I could say because we are in constant communication with our members, but this is personal to us. Yeah. It's personal to you, and we just want you to know that we love you. We care about your personal situation, and those of you who are going through these kind of struggles these days, and stay connected with your fellow members, please, through the use the comments section or use the blog to give us an update on how you're doing. That blog is locked down for just members only. So is the comment section, and so this is. You have a personal connection here with people who will pray for you, with people who care about you, with people who want to help. And so please stay engaged in that. If somehow you've seen this episode and you're not yet a member, these are the kind of people we're looking for. If you're one of those, go to billwhittle.com and click that Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. We'll see you this week on Right Angle.